Welcome back. I am your host. I am attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer.
And now, here's that man with a head just crammed full of knowledge, Mr. Know-It-All.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We have found a way to introduce this segment. Thank you, Debbie. Without you, this show would
be
nothing.
Crash and burn.
But Jake has a question for me because he likes to make fun of my commercials. So ask the question.
I do. Word on the street is that you had a client named that we called Jim who owed over $100,000 of back taxes. And you calculated zero tax obligation.
That's correct.
Is that true? And how is that possible?
Okay, so I had a client in yesterday, and before he hired me, he said, I went around to all these other places, and all these, mine too, because I talk about that on my, I don't think I have them on my homepage. But anyway, all these other places are, hey, I owed $60,000 and they settled for $500, or I owed, all these wild allegations. And the guy said, if they owe so much money on taxes, how could it be that they settle for so little? Because usually if you owe money to the IRS and you have money, they want it. The only time they usually take less is when you don't have any money. So how could you, if you're not making any money, how could you owe them so much? So here's the answer. And this is the same thing here. Remember this, we talked in that commercial, I talk about a 1099A or 1099C, right? And these are when
1099J.
Okay, and so if you don't treat,
Jim.
and this is a good time because now that you're getting these 1099As, 1099Cs. I had another client here who didn't include some 1099 income in his tax return. Well, nowadays everything's electronic. So when I send a 1099 to you, I'm sending a copy to the IRS, and they have it. So if I don't include it in my tax return, they know about that right away, and they're going to find it. And it's kind of the same thing here with the 1099A, 1099C. And I've had clients who make a fairly good living, but they didn't file their taxes, even though almost every year they had a tax refund due, but they didn't file their taxes. And so one year they sold their home. And when you sell your home, that 1099 is produced. And so you're supposed to put that money in and account for it on your tax returns. But if you don't do it, the IRS does it for you. This is called a substitute for return. And
we've talked about that before.
A lot,
on this show.
Because these are dangerous. Because when they do a substitute for return for you, they give you deductions. They just look at the number. This is what they say you made. This is what the tax rate is. This is how much you owe. So you don't get any deductions. So if I sold a home, say, make some numbers up, say it's $300,000 I made the home.
Why $300,000? Let's do $500,000.
Okay, so if
Let's do
$700,000.
So if I sold the home for $300,000, but I bought it for $290,000, right? There's only $10,000 difference there.
Can we let's do $50 million.
And there's only a little bit of a difference there. And so if I don't put it on my tax return, they're going to use that number, the full amount of that I sold the property for, as income to me, and then assess the tax based on that income. And that's where these wild numbers come from, usually.
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy called Stephen Leahy, and now this little piggy has a home.
No, some police don't call me, but they should. But anyway,
you need to be more appreciative.
I am a child of the '60s. Okay. Anyway, but again, sometimes it happens where they do actually owe $60,000, and they get a really great deal. So I had a client. They're an older couple, and this money's they had to take some money out of 401k to live because they were having some health issues. And all of a sudden they owe the IRS all this money. They're on a fixed income. They couldn't get rid of it. Well, we did what they call an offer in compromise, and they actually settled for $29.
Whoa!
They owed almost
$29.
$29.
We just have to have somebody cover the gas it was cost.
So again, some of these wild numbers, they really actually do happen, but they don't happen for most people. And I think when you go to some of these websites and they tout these, look at this is what they're trying to imply, we're going to do that for you. Well, for most people, it's not going to work that way. Most people who owe $60,000 to the IRS aren't going to be able to walk away owing with a $29 bill. It's going to happen.
Can't.
Most of the time, that's again. I just gave you an example where it has happened. And that other example I told you about the woman with the house came out that she had a refund coming back.
Can I bring you to a really expensive restaurant? Can you talk the bill down maybe to from $200?
Well, it's kind of the same thing. Is kind of people think, I don't want to pay the IRS everything I owe them. Will they take less? I owe them $60,000. I'm going to offer them $20,000. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way the IRS makes these deals. And people think this, and they do the same thing with this what they call an offer and compromise. So people come to see me and they say, I want an offer and compromise. I want to offer the IRS $10,000. I owe them $60,000, but I want to offer them $10,000. Would you do that for me? The answer is no, because the offer and compromise is not going to be accepted. It's a waste of time and effort.
I don't want to sell my BMW.
That's right. And people, nobody wants to pay their taxes. And if you miss them and you're not paying them on time, the IRS is not going to be lenient to you. They're making everybody else pay their taxes on time. And if you don't pay them on time, they're not going to give you a break. Otherwise, nobody would pay their taxes on time and everybody would get a break. And it doesn't work that way. And if you want to find out how it will work, how it can work for you, then you need to give Opem Tax Resolutions a call. And me. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
Okay, I forgot that one. I almost let Rocky off.
It did answer my question.
So I'm glad.
How can we contact you if we have any?
312-664-6649. Again, it's 312-664-6649.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're about to wrap this show up right after this commercial break here on AM 560.
The Answer.